Banter with me, your host, Nicole Aslan. Still not sponsored, so if you want to sponsor me for anything, just shoot me a I have my coffee account down at the bottom, and you can help me just have fun with this. So if you're listening, you might hear some ads. I'm playing around with some stuff. I'm so sorry. I have the hiccups all of a sudden, and I wanted to make sure I recorded this before I forgot. And of course, it's right when I want to record, right? It's because I drink my Diet Coke too fast. That's my fault, but I still love you, Diet Coke. So we'll take it. But back to what I was saying, today's interview is super fun. I don't know why it zooms in like that. It's so weird. It's Valerie Taylor, who writes the Venus Bixby Mystery Series. She also has a romantic comedy series as well. You can find on our website. It's a cozy mystery set on the south coast of Massachusetts. I kept saying the Cape, but it's like Cape adjacent. And it's just really fun. And it's very witty, very snappy. The banter is bantering. We talk a lot about writing realistic dialogue in the podcast, which is super fun. And this is my first ever foray into being a host on a book tour. So one of I don't know why all of a sudden my brain just turned off. It's because Madeline's right here. But the Great Escapes book tour, sponsored by Dolly Cass, who is a super friend to the cozy mystery community. I've done a couple of tours with her, and I know I have a lot of author friends who do a lot of book tours with her. I'm doing a couple more. I'm trying to write it at this same time so I can tell you more about it. But Escape with Dolly Cass into a Good Book, and she does Great Escape book tours. For cozy mysteries authors, it's free. For other authors, it's a nominal fee, and you get to do blog posts, interviews, reviews. As Valerie says in the podcast, if you go to the website, there's going to be a giveaway. And it's just basically to get word out for your books. And when this one came out, I saw the cover, which I'm showing to you guys online here. And with the whole St. Patty's Day Irish theme, and also the fact that it's set in Massachusetts, I was like, yeah, sign me up. And luckily I got the date. So this is coming out on June 20th. Oh my God, the summer's almost over. So I hope you're going to enjoy it. But, before we get into that, I guess I got to talk about the Red Sox, and the hiccups just make it all the better. They're not good, yo. It's been really a bad season. Every time I think they're getting ready to turn it around, they decide to stink up the joint again. I did post a TikTok video about how I must manifest things when I'm writing. So the past couple of months, I've been really upset with analytics in baseball because I'm not a math person. I'm a writer. And I know I have a lot of writer friends who are math people. So, like, good for them. But I am not so much, hence the hiccuping. See, math scared me so much that I hiccuped. I just don't like it. So analytics to me is kind of a bummer because it distills people down to numbers, and it doesn't take into account the human nature of the game, the situational aspects of the game, and the Red Sox just aren't good at the situational aspects. Excuse me. It's annoying because, like, I don't expect them to win the World Series every year. Would it be nice if they did? Yes. But it also wouldn't, I never felt, even in some of the bad seasons, I never felt like they didn't care. The young guys, I feel like they care. Other people, when you're watching the game on TV, are kind of just like, oh, they're going through the motions. That's not fun. I will say a bright spot on the season has been Wilson Contreras, who came in as our first baseman. I'm a Tristan Casas girly, but he's been hurt so much that it's been a little bit of a bummer. But I do love Wilson Contreras. I love my Cedon Rafaela. He's my favorite. He's just so cute and always has a smile on his face. So, like, there's people that I enjoy. Jaron's a classic, a little bit of a loose cannon sometimes, but he's been playing okay. It's just they can't string everything together. And then with Devers being gone, Bregman, who I was never really on top of anyway, gone. They just don't have that zhuzh anymore, and it's really kind of a bummer. So much so that they were doing a hot dog bag giveaway last week, and I really wanted the hot dog bag, but I couldn't justify spending $70 to go and then pay for parking or the train and go sit and watch a subpar product. So the one good thing that the Red Sox have going for them lately is the fact that they let the Scottish tartan army invade because Scotland is playing in the World Cup here in the Boston area down at Gillette Stadium, but don't it's not called Gillette Stadium while they're down there. They're down there. It's called Boston Stadium. So tonight they play this coming out. I'm recording this the day before this comes out. So they're playing Morocco down there at 6, and it's going to be fun. They've been in and out. I did talk to somebody I know at the ballpark and said they've been loud. So at least somebody's having fun at the Red Sox, just not us. So that's kind of a bummer. But we are getting into football training season. So Drake May will be back out. We'll see what happens there. There's a lot of talk of the Celtics trading or acquiring Giannis Antetokounmpo. I don't necessarily want him. I like him as a person and a player. I don't know if I like him on my team because I am also a big Jaylen Brown stan, and I don't want Jaylen Brown to go. So, Brad Stevens, if you're listening, that's my opinion. But on that note, I really do want to get into talking about let you listen to Valerie because it's actually really interesting how she went from a corporate career to becoming this writer of two prolific, I mean, two trilogies. It's and in two different genres. I think is really cool, and how she kind of formed that, and also talking about the character of Venus Bixby, who I talk about in the podcast. It's not your typical 20-something-year-old sleuth who works in a tea shop who loves this, that, and the other. She's a little bit older. She's a little bit wiser. She's also a little bit still lost and confused. So I just really enjoyed it. And I hope there's more in the future. We talk about some of the side characters who I ended up falling in love with as well. And we talk at the beginning of this how excited we were to do this because we have a very similar not story, but she is originally from Connecticut. She's in Connecticut now. She's a big Red Sox fan. She lived 20 minutes away from me in Stoughton. So like we kind of have that vibe, and she's just so nice. And I hope to meet her in real life at one of these events coming up soon. So we'll see. Connecticut's not that far, and I go to Connecticut. Well, I used to go a lot more, but we can still go. But on that note, Madeline's ready to listen to she was part of the whole conversation. So enjoy Valerie Taylor today. But welcome to Valerie Taylor, author extraordinaire, Sisters in Crime member. I was just, before we started recording, I was actually just telling you, this is part of the Great Escapes book tour, virtual book tour that Dolly Cass does. And I've used her several times. I love them. If you're a cozy author, get to her website because she blasts out. I mean, I get emails every week about people looking for tours. So I'm really excited. So Valerie Taylor, welcome. Her latest is A Jewel of a Crime, Venus Bixby. For those who are actually watching on YouTube, we both have her copies. I emailed her. I said I started it at the nail salon, and I almost didn't leave the nail salon because I was reading it. And I was like, "Can I just sit in the massage chair for a little longer so I can finish the book?" But welcome, Valerie. Tell people a little bit about yourself.
Oh, well, first of all, Nicole, I want to thank you. This is actually the first day of the book tour, which runs to July 2nd. I can't believe I'm saying July.
I know.
And I didn't count how many of you participants are on the tour, but it's quite a few. And if you go to Great Escapes book tour, you'll find it. And I'm giving away two $10 Amazon gift cards so people can sign up.
And I'll have the link to the tour
oh, great.
when I post it on YouTube. So that way people don't need to, we will help them with their homework.
Yeah. And I, when I got the list of who is participating in the tour, I got really excited when I saw Nicole's baseball books and banter, and that it was a podcast, and I jumped on it, as Nicole knows, because what I've discovered, or we've discovered, is that I lived in Stoughton, Mass,
It's
a
20
long time
minutes from
ago,
me. Yeah,
like
20
yeah,
minutes for me.
like 20, well, I moved out of there 10 years ago, but I moved in there like 20 years ago, but only for a short period of time because I went to Seattle
Mm.
for work and I was out there for 10 years, came back, sold my condo there and moved down to back to Connecticut where I am originally from and my family is nearby. So, yeah, so I mean, it's kind of like good news, bad news,
Yeah,
because I would love to have been 20 minutes from you, Nicole. We
I
could have
know. Oh my God,
done this at a
so
coffee
much.
shop. Yeah.
A live podcast. Oh my God.
But on top of that, to learn that I would be talking to a Red Sox fan. And I mean, it just, thrilled my heart, even though they're not doing
I
well
know.
this year,
It's
I'm
so
still
hard.
a
So
Red
hard.
Sox
I
fan.
loved it because not only we had that connection, your book is set on the Cape,
Right.
which I was just saying, my dad is
You're
out
the
there now. We
right.
have a house there. And we are also from Connecticut originally. So like we have a lot of
A lot in
yeah, a lot of
common.
similar stuff going on, which is awesome.
So in your honor and to advertise everything, I
Oh,
can lift this. I've got my
yay.
Red Sox shirt on.
I got my baseball earrings. It's a little
There,
hard to tell in the
they,
small, but
I can see, yeah, they're bopping around.
you
Um,
gotta do something to bring up the vibe.
exactly.
We try.
And, and on the back it says Pedroia.
My
Dustin
favorite.
was
He's a
Dustin was one of my most I
yeah.
love Dustin, but also Nomar
Oh
Garcia.
yeah.
I have a picture
Noma.
of him in my playroom downstairs.
Noma.
So,
And you do mention it. You do mention baseball in the book, so I was very excited to see that.
yeah, so I grew up in Connecticut and I'm supposed to be retired
Mm.
now, but I retired 10 years ago,
Oh,
like now in the summer. And I had, for almost 30 years, I was a marketing communications manager and for agencies and then for financial services companies. Like I worked for Fleet
oh yeah.
and I worked for, why am I losing my mind? Citizens Bank,
Okay.
so
Very,
near
very prolific here.
right up the street.
Yeah.
And so I was doing a lot of writing, but it was all financial
Right.
services, mostly retirement. So I was always thinking about my retirement.
Right.
Um, but then when I was still living in the Stoughton area, I went to a weekend long writing conference up in Boston and met a couple of other people and we formed a writing group that met on a regular basis. And so I started writing the book that I wanted to write.
Right.
But it really was going nowhere. And then I left and went out to Seattle, brought the draft with me, and I took it out a couple of times over 10 years. It really didn't go anywhere. People that I talked to about it said, you really have to write that book. So when I came back in 2016,
Happy 10
um,
years.
I know, I said, well, I'm not a gardener
Mm,
and I don't knit,
mm,
unfortunately. I tried, not very well.
yeah.
So I have to write this book. So I dug it out and I took an online writing course. I scrapped everything that I had written, and I wrote this. I wrote What's Not Said. Okay. And this was supposed to be my one and only book.
Oh.
But then I won't go into what it's all about, but it's a romantic comedy and it's set in Boston and part of it is in Venice.
Ooh.
And people wanted to know more about what happened to the main characters. And so I said, really? So then I said, so that was published in 2020. So and what were we doing in 2020?
I
We
mean,
were
nothing. We were
nothing. We were
we
locked
were
down.
all in our houses.
So I wrote the next one, which is What's Not True. And this is Boston, Paris, and Greece.
Oh,
And then, so because I did two, I had to do three.
yes.
So that became
Round
what
it
was
out.
what. Okay. So this is Boston, Paris, and Greece.
Okay.
And um, and so that was kind of going to be it. But then my readers were saying, you really should write a cozy mystery. And I said, really? What is a cozy
Right.
mystery? So I had to do some research and realized that I had read Agatha Christie over the years and a few others, but I did a little bit more reading. And what people had said, and I don't know if you found this, Nicole, in A Jewel of a Crime, but people love my dialogue.
Mhm.
They described it as the French kiss. It was
Yep.
like perfect. It wasn't too
It's
verbose.
it's human.
It's
It's human
human.
dialogue. Yeah.
Yeah, it's the way people talk. And I think one of the ways that I learned how to do that is by listening
Hmm.
to, going to a coffee shop or a restaurant or what, and just listen to the way people, they don't always speak in
Oh,
sentences, right? So, and then as I was writing, I would look at the dialogue and say, does this make any sense?
yeah.
Anyway, so I took another online week-long course on how to write a cozy mystery, and I realized that it would be much harder than a romantic comedy
Right.
novel, which is really just telling a story.
Right.
Okay. And as I wrote it, wrote them, I would say, what if this happened? What if that
Yep.
happened? And you can just, change it up. But with, as you know, a cozy,
Clues, red
you
herrings,
have red herring.
suspects.
You have your protagonist or your sleuth and
Mm-hmm.
your detective and your villain and your cast of characters on the side and your town. You just have everything,
Yep.
and it takes a lot more planning.
So
And
so were you a plotter when you came into the cozy?
I had not been.
Okay.
I was more of a pantser. I
Yeah.
would just, get up and I'm a morning writer. And as I wrote the other books, I would just get up and sit at this computer and say, okay, I usually write by scene.
Okay.
So what is the scene I'm going to write today? And usually at the end of a writing session, I will write the first sentence or two
Oh,
of the next chapter, because that's a good way to
guide.
jump right in. Oh, is that what I'm going to write today?
Yeah.
Okay, you know.
Oh, this is the scene I was thinking about.
Um, so yeah, so I learned very quickly that I had to be more of a plotter. Um, and I think as I wrote the three cozies, I went into different levels of plotting.
Mhm.
I think maybe at first I did a lot, and then I pulled back on the second one and did just some, or I would plot part of it, but not the whole thing. And then with A Jewel of a Crime, I had part of it written the last quarter of 2025. And I got up on New Year's Day
Oh,
and said, you got to finish this book. You
right.
just got to write it. And so I literally said, I'm going to have the draft done by February 15th. And as I said, I'm a morning writer. And so I just,
Every
you know,
morning.
every morning just add it. And I met my February 15th deadline. And then, then it's the heavy.
Yeah.
But it's for me, I don't think you've read the first two
No,
books.
not yet.
Um, but I think it's when I look at the rom-com trilogy,
Mhm.
I think of it as good, better, best.
Yep. Yep.
Okay. Because, the first book, even though I love it
Right.
and other people love it too, it was my first book.
Yep.
And then the second one, I wrote it during the lockdown and, so it got better. But then by the time I got to What's Not Lost, it was like, oh, this is really good.
You had
And
your voice, you knew the characters, you knew everything about them. Yeah.
I also had a lot of good feedback
Right.
from readers,
Yep.
which I was able to incorporate. So when I was doing, I feel kind of the same way with the
I
Cozy
agree.
trilogy, well, A Whale of a Murder is great, but it's kind of greater, greatest.
Yes, yes, yes. No, I feel that very wholeheartedly. My third one's coming out in September, and I like it. I think it's also because as a writer, how much you've learned since that first book. And so I know the first book is self-contained. It's the introduction to everybody. So you don't have
Exactly.
the
Yeah,
depth that you
yeah,
really
yeah.
wanted to get
Right.
into with some of the characters. But as you are able to go into book 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, the characters are much more real because they've lived with you for so long. And you can,
Exactly.
and like you said with the dialogue, you treat it, they're actual living, breathing humans in your head. They're not just
Exactly.
people on a book like they were probably the first one. Again, it's the baby, so it's like, oh, that's my first baby, I love them so much. But people would ask me when the second one came out, like, what's your favorite of the two? And I'm like, honestly, my second one, because like I knew things a little bit differently. I like the character growth. I like, you're not as, you can get into, you don't have to be as descriptive as some things because you've already done it in the first book.
Right.
So I see that completely.
Yeah.
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 The
Yeah.
whole vibe. With I did want to get into, before we even jump even further into this, I love your homepage of your website because the first sentence is Valerie Taylor is not a USA Today bestselling author. She does not have a master's degree in literature. And I love that because you hear that everybody's touting online. Oh, I'm the USA best-selling author. I'm like, no, the real people aren't. It's more realistic to be like, I'm my parents' favorite author. Like, my best friend loves my books. Like,
Exactly.
they
Yeah.
get checked out at the library, but not everybody, they think that's the ultimate goal. And a lot of times that's not. And also that they need to have that MBA in literature or master's in literature or
Okay,
fine
right.
arts or the creative arts.
I didn't even know that even
Yeah.
exists.
Yeah.
You
And it's definitely, I feel like more so in the mystery genre, I find it's less, there's less gatekeeping behind that you, especially in the cozy world, that you don't have to have those degrees and those accolades because it's something that comforts people. And
Mhm,
there's no barrier for people to
mhm,
get these
mhm.
books. They're accessible, which I love because
Yeah,
you want to read a book that makes you warm and fuzzy,
right.
but with
Well,
a
what's
little darkness.
interesting, the difference, one of the main differences between my rom-com and the cozies is that the cozies are clean.
Yeah,
Okay, where my rom-com, I always say it's not exactly 50 Shades of
sure, sure,
Gray,
sure.
but it's a
But
it's
there's
a
rom
it's
in it.
an adult.
Yeah, there's
adult
rom is the first word.
yeah.
So,
And because What's
yeah,
Not Said was going to be my only novel,
right.
I kind of poured everything into
Yeah.
it. And then so I pulled back kind of on the um,
Sure,
intimacy
sure, sure.
in What's Not True, but it's still kind of there, and then it maybe it's underneath,
Yeah.
okay. So then when I went to write the cozies, as you know, she has,
Big
her
time.
husband had died, and she's got a significant other. So there's this
Yeah.
undertone, and they have their canoodle nights, and
But it's
so
all,
it's there
yeah,
because I can't, they
that's
say,
real life.
no, not
Yeah.
that I have canoodle nights anymore,
But
but I'd like to,
it's
maybe,
real life. And
but
that's,
it's real life,
if you didn't put it in there, somebody would come back to you and be like, she doesn't like her boyfriend. Like they don't ever
Yeah,
smooch or whatever. Like they don't need to know the nitty gritty, but they need to know that there's some
exactly.
affection.
Right, right, right. So,
I love the character of Venus because she is kind of an atypical, she's a widow, widow widow, right? Widow, not
Widow.
widow.
I know. I always have
There's
to say
men.
widow,
Yeah,
widow,
her
widow.
husband's dead.
Yeah,
And she's a little bit older. She's not a senior citizen sleuth. She's not a
yeah,
young adult sleuth, but she's kind of in that a little past middle age, even though she has all these businesses and stuff that she's formulated and working with, she still kind of feels a little lost, which I
hmm,
think people can sometimes feel after. I mean, I just hit middle age and I'm starting to feel that like, is this what I want to do? Like, you kind of still have those. So I liked that she was a character that felt real. Where did she come from? Like, was she a little bit of you, a little bit of your friends, a little bit, or just kind of you were like, I want a character that nobody has,
yeah.
basically.
Well, a couple of things. First of all, that is a really astute observation because I did get a review where the person said, Venus, I wish I had it in front of me, but I don't. Um, so I'm paraphrasing.
Yeah,
It was Venus is a unique character in the cozy mystery space.
she is.
Right? So I was like, oh, good. That was
Yeah,
what I was aiming
you.
for. But Venus actually
Oh,
came to life in What's Not Lost, which is the third book in the romantic comedy. She is, in What's Not Lost, the aunt of the antagonist.
okay.
And and when I was writing it, she was going to have a bigger role than she ended up with because one of my readers, actually a reader from Seattle. I was
Oh,
doing a Zoom meeting with them, and we were talking about the first two books in the rom-com. And I was saying, well, I'm writing the third and everything. And the main character in that is a woman named Cassie O'Callahan. And so this reader said, I think what should happen to Cassie is XYZ.
hmm,
Okay. And it was something that I was thinking about, but I hadn't flushed it out
right,
that way. And so I went back into my writing, into my draft, and I I minimized Venus's role because I had to change
right.
the last half of the
The
story.
smoking. Yeah.
She was there. So when and that takes place like in 2021
Okay.
or something. So I said Venus Bixby. I mean, I
Yeah.
loved her
What a
name.
name.
She lived in near Boston, but near the Cape. And so I was like, she's going to be my sleuth. I said, I loved her so much. She needs her own series.
Yeah.
So I had to kind of back up like 10
Yeah.
years and have her do the backstory and
Sure.
everything that comes out early on in A Whale of a Murder. And that's the first book. And so the first chapter or two really are her backstory. And that was a kind of a criticism I
Hmm.
received from a few people that said, they
Too
thought
much.
there was too much backstory. And I thought, well,
It's book one.
it's book one, you got to know who she is, So and then so she has a sister that lives
Yeah.
out in San Francisco who's kind of her foil, if you
Yeah.
will. And so it's her sister's daughter that is the antagonist in What's Not Lost. And and I think I bring her in and switched at death.
Okay.
Lexi, her name is Lexi. So I kind of connected
Yeah.
the two
The world.
trilogies that I have. And she is so Cassie and What's Not Said is probably more like me
Okay.
than Venus
Yeah.
is. I mean, she is totally really
Yeah.
her own animal. I'm sure, I mean, her love of Boston sports,
The music.
the love of oldies music. Um, in A Whale of a Murder, she owns an oldies music store and cookie bakery, and then in Switched at Death, she opens a kitty daycare center.
Love that.
And in A Jewel of a Crime, she switches out the bakery for a bookstore, of
Yep.
course,
Of course, you need one.
Yeah. And I mean, she obviously, is a bit of a flirt, if you
Yeah.
will, and so that's probably part
And
of my
it's almost like she doesn't mean to do it. Like it just kind of it's just her nature. It's that
right,
itty quickness that she
right,
has. It's like
right.
sitcom banter. In my head, when I was reading it, it's similar to how Ellen Byron works, I think, where it's a lot of snappy dialogue, and you kind of get. That's why I think I was sitting in the nail salon and I just wanted to keep reading because it's quick. You're like, oh, I don't want to miss that. The other thing I loved, and I don't know if you have this in your other books, I'm going to assume you do, is the playlists in the back.
Yes.
I think
All
that
of my books have a
okay.
playlist.
I
Mhm.
love that. That's a great idea because
So the way that came to be was when I was writing What's Not Said, another author friend of mine had just published her book and she put a playlist on her website.
okay.
And I was like, now wait a minute. My
Yeah.
book isn't published yet. I can incorporate it. It's my book,
Yeah,
you
you can do
know.
what you want.
I can do what I want. So I think with that, I can't remember exactly, but I think I went through and maybe there are some songs in that book, but I kind of do it along with the story.
Right.
Okay. But then when I went to What's Not True and What's Not Lost and the cozies, it was on my mind that I should incorporate some songs. And so some of it was very organic.
Yeah.
And then others I may have like, you really need to get a song in here somewhere. But then in A Jewel of a Crime, which I think is, I don't know, maybe this is my favorite book. I think I was halfway through it when I said, you haven't really
Oh,
music yet because there was so much going on
right.
that I think I went back and maybe incorporated something. But I really love, having the songs. I think they represent me. They're my favorite
Yeah.
songs, I
And it's
think.
eclectic, which I love. Like it's not just all oldies. It's not just all I will say, in my head, as I'm thinking of your book and the Moonlight Guild. Moonlight, yeah. I keep saying
Moonstone Guild.
Moonstone because I keep thinking the Lollipop Guild because you mention it once and now that's all I can every time I think about it.
Yeah,
So spoiler alert, everybody, you're gonna get that stuck in your head. But I just think it's a great way to tie different because sometimes reading is a solitary singular focus, but by having the playlist you can maybe put it on in the background and they mention it in the book sometimes the songs and you're like, oh yeah, I did love that song, and it's more interactive, which is kind of
or there be, I don't know if I did it in Jewel, but in the other, there might just be a few words.
yeah.
Oh, and it's part of a
Yeah.
lyric, but it's just a few words. And I'm one of these people when I write, I have goosebumps.
Oh
That when I write and that comes to me, I just laugh.
yeah.
I'm like, I don't know if anybody else is going to laugh when
Well, I
they.
did, especially at the Lollipop Guild, because now I can't stop saying it.
So you mentioned the Moonstone Guild.
Yeah.
That, as I was saying, how I created the first two books. When I got to Jewel, and I set the 6-week deadline at the beginning of the year. Um, Jewel is a little bit more complicated a story than the other two, I think. And there was a point when I was like revising and everything. I was like, now be careful,
Yeah.
Valerie, because you may have it
Too-
too
mm,
complicated. So I may have trimmed out some things, but I added, and you know this, Nicole, from writing subsequent books, that you have your main
right.
characters and your cast of characters, but you have to keep adding. So in a Jewel, so this takes place in Chatham Crossing, which is a fictional
Mhm.
town situated between Providence and Cape Cod, and it's an old whaling town that well, New Bedford was my
Yep.
inspiration for it, and so in the other two books, it centers around the historic district.
Right.
Okay. But in a Jewel, there's the start of a new shopping
Yep.
center. Okay. The Harpoon Square. And all of the women, so there's like 6 or 7 stores, and they're all owned by crazy women.
Which,
Okay.
yay.
So that's part of me, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And so they got together as I was writing this, and I'm going through, formulating the different stores and what they're like and everything. The women are like, I thought, I need to bring them together. And so I formed the Lollipop Guild or the Flintstone Guild,
Yep.
right?
Yeah.
And then that takes on
With their shawls, their secret
and their
shawls.
skulls and their little, they
Yeah.
had
The blessed
little things
be,
that they did, and little things that they would say to each other, and then they get involved in trying to solve the
which I
murder.
always love in a cozy mystery when the friends group or the group of villagers, that sounds so like Frankenstein, but the group of villagers kind of start to investigate more with the sleuth instead of just being like, you shouldn't do that and da da da, da.
Right, right,
It's
right,
kind of more fun because similar to how Venus came to be, you never know which character is going to pop and then just keep
right.
talking to you afterwards. And I mean, I have characters who I'm like, I should write a short story about them because I'm like really into that character.
Well,
And
that's exactly what because people say,
yeah,
is it going to be a fourth?
yep.
I'm not really sure, but what I'm leaning towards is taking the characters of
Oh,
the Moonstone Guild and doing, kind of their backstory a little
yeah.
bit, and see, maybe I'll put it into a novella or
Yeah.
something. I'm not really sure, or if it's going to end up being a full-blown uh,
Series or books.
novel again. Yeah, so
It's the
without
Harpoon Crossing Chronicles.
I didn't do it purposely with
Yeah.
that idea in mind.
I don't think we ever do as writers, right? You never write it when you're writing a character. So I'm a pantser, so like when I'm just writing, I'm like do 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 do, do and then I'm like, ooh, this character is interesting. The character I'm talking about for my readers is Gray, who is this mysterious security guard. And in book 3, spoiler, you find out he knows how to fly a helicopter, and you're like,
Oh, where'd that
how
come
does he
from?
know how to fly a helicopter? And so that's kind of where those stories in my head, he's like a Clive Cussler adventure character. So I that's where I want to tease out that story. But I just wrote him because I thought I need another male presence in this.
Right,
That's
right,
that's
right.
not the love interest because he's adorable and I love him, but there need to be a foil. So it's funny. I don't think non-writers realize how much the characters talk to you
Oh, they
when you're
do.
writing, and you're like, oh, I did not see that coming.
Yep.
And that's what makes writing fun, I think.
Well, speaking of which, one of my or two of my characters are cats,
Yeah.
right? So in the rom-com trilogy, there is a cat named Topher, and that is a nod to my cat who passed away 10 years ago. And his name was Topher. And so in What's Not Said, he has kind of a big part.
Yeah.
But then in What's Not True, he's kind of just a cameo. And
Mm-hmm.
then people said,
Where's the cat?
where's Topher?
Yeah.
And so in What's Not Lost, he has a major role.
Okay.
In fact, I had a whole chapter dedicated to him in the middle of the book. When I woke up one morning, I had the chapters all across my dining room table. I ran downstairs, I grabbed that chapter and said, he's got to be the first.
Yeah.
So I rewrote the whole chapter and made him into the prologue. And
Oh.
so he carries the novel, and
Oh.
and then of course Venus
Yep.
is a cat lover and has 2 cats named Sunny and
Of
Cher,
course.
of course, going after the oldies.
Old.
And and there's a whole backstory about her family and
Yeah.
in San Francisco and everything. So it's
Because
a
as a cozy author, I also have cats in my
yeah,
book, and
yeah.
they are named Dewey, Petey, and Poppy, which are my 3 favorite Red Sox. I did just get my developmental edit back, and I did spell Petey wrong in one of the. She goes, "I think you mean Petey, Pedey," and I was like, "You're right. It was just a typo." I was like, "It's definitely Dustin Pedroia." And in my first book, I thanked Dustin Pedroia because, as we
Oh,
talked
there you
about at the
go.
beginning,
Yeah.
he's the best. But we are starting to run low on time because I don't
Yes,
pay
I
for
see
Zoom.
that.
I know.
Right.
Do you have any book recommendations for the audience of books
Oh,
you may have just read or that
oh,
guided you,
wow.
or
Yes.
favorite books of the past?
Well, goodness, there are
I
quite
know
so
so many.
many. And I've noticed on like Twitter or
Mm,
Instagram, you have these people that are saying the first, 50 books. So anyway, but I loved Hamnet.
yeah,
And I love a lot of historical fiction.
same.
So I'm a huge Stephen King fan. So there's always that. Oh my goodness. I wish I had known
But
that.
I
I
will
mean,
say on your website, you do have books that you
oh,
read,
I do.
so
Yes.
people can go check that out.
And I do love what I'm trying to do now is to promote indie authors.
Yes, yes,
Okay. Because you see, like I say on Instagram, people are, they're promoting the correspondent and atmosphere
yeah.
and
The ones who don't need the promotion.
yeah, the yesteryear. Yeah,
Yeah,
right. They don't need and I've kind of read all those.
yeah, right, right,
There is, and I love all my indie authors, so I'll
right.
just say this. But there is a memoir that I just finished reading by a woman named Deborah Shepherd, and she lives up in Maine. And the title of her book is an old man's darling.
Mm,
And um, when she was 22, she worked with a fellow who was 55 and married.
um,
And they eventually get together and get married. And it's their love story and
wow.
how it evolved or not
Yeah.
over the years. And it's I think, a very fast read. There are a lot of letters in it. And I think it was a
Oh, that's
remarkable
good to know.
achievement. So, I
Wrote
mean,
that down.
and again, I could go on with a
Oh, I
whole
know.
list of
Oh
indie
my
authors.
gosh.
So,
Same.
but that one is like so totally out of the normal
Yeah.
genre that I read. And so
I found a lot of the interviews I do, you'll see this with a lot of writers. They don't just read their genre. They do read their genre, but they
right,
don't just read the genre. I've talked to people. I'm very heavy on the historical fiction mysteries
yeah.
and sci-fi novels, but I don't
Oh,
write them. So
yeah,
I
yeah,
think that's kind of the life of a writer is you want to read everything to know what's out
right.
there, but you also do have to read in your genre to kind of see what the latest tropes are and use them or not use them.
Well, two other books, and of course they're very popular, is Remarkably Bright
Yeah.
Creatures, and that's set out in the Pacific Northwest. And that is a book that I recommend people listen to on
Yeah, I heard it
Audible.
was great. Yeah.
And so I loved it because of the
Mary.
Seattle reference and
Yeah.
everything. But also the one that's very popular now is Project Hail Mary.
Oh yeah, I haven't read it yet. It's on
Oh,
my list though.
so I read it and then I listened to it like the week before I went to see the movie.
Okay.
And I've seen the movie in the movie theater 3 times already.
Okay, good to know. Good to
Yeah.
know. And people, they ValerieTaylorAuthor.com is your website. I'll also
Right?
put a
Yeah.
link below.
Yeah.
I'll
Okay.
also put a link to your Great Escapes tour for the next 2 weeks.
Great.
Do you have any events coming up in the next week or so that
Oh,
you
well, tomorrow I'm going to be at a book signing
okay.
in Danbury at the Booksmith shop um, in the Summit complex,
Okay.
Reserve Road, I
This will
think it
probably get posted in the morning.
after.
So
Yeah. So,
hopefully if
and,
people
and,
listen to it
and
first thing in the morning.
then I'll do some online things over the
Yeah.
summer and then pick up in the fall and do some libraries. And
Fun.
there's a big Connecticut book fair in November that I do. So
Oh,
that you
okay.
get
Interesting.
authors and publishers. So
Interesting. Well, thank you so much. This was so much fun. Could talk
totally.
for days.
Yes, we could.
We'll
Maybe
do
we will.
this again. Yeah, we'll do it again.
We'll do it again. And thank you. And I'll just show A Jewel of a Crime
Yeah.
again. It's available in paperback, ebook, Kindle mainly, and Kindle Unlimited.
Ooh, which is always good, people. I have Kindle Unlimited. I love it. I don't,
Ooh, yeah.
I know Amazon sucks sometimes, but like Kindle Unlimited's worth it for me. So thank you.
Great, Nicole. Thank you so much.
See, wasn't she so fun and so interesting to hear how she talks about dialogue? Because as I said in the interview, Ellen Byron to me is like the queen of the snappy dialogue. Uh, and I feel like her characters had that same sort of real life if they would be my friends, and that's how I would talk to my friends. So I really enjoyed it, and I hope to hear from her. I hope she writes more cozies because I think she really it fits in that genre really really well. Um, so go check out Valerie's books. I'm going to put the Great Escapes Tour link below so you can go enter the giveaways and you can go support her on other pages, blogs. It's like our author interviews, spotlights. And I think, I don't know if there's other podcasts, but I'm the first, except for these darn hiccups, guys. Also happening right now is the World Cup, and it's in America and Mexico and Canada this year. It's in North America. And actually, I wanted to get this recording down, which is why I'm hiccuping my way through it, because USA is playing Australia. Now, we all know I have a complicated relationship with the country sometimes. And sometimes, like right now, it's really hard to defend the higher ups in the thing. But for some reason, there's still that little bit of national pride for like the soccer game, the hockey, all this kind of stuff. So I am cheering for the United States. Do I like some of the smaller teams that are in it? Of course, they're also fun. As I talked about in the intro, Scotland has been amazing up here. So I'm also a French girl, so I do love me some French, some Mbappe, and I love Thierry and Henry on the what you call it, the studio show. So France is always if we're gonna go with a powerhouse, I would be cool with France winning. Funny story, I did American Music Abroad. I think it was my sophomore to junior year in high school. And we did a tour of Europe singing. I was in the choir. And it was so fun. Well, it was mostly fun. There were some bad moments. I had a bad roommate. And also, I had a really big crush on a boy. And as we were eating gelato, as one does at like nighttime, I was all like, oh, he's sitting with me. We're so cute. Oh my God. I don't even remember his name now anymore. And we're chitty chatting. I think we're connecting. You know, I'm 10th grade. I'm like, oh my God, this could be my first real boyfriend. um, he then said, so what's the deal with your roommate? I really like her. And I was like, gutted. And it's so hard to be gutted when you're in 10th grade, which is like 16, um, away from your family, away from all of your best friends, and in Europe. I will say, I do remember we were in Switzerland and we stayed at this hotel, and it was like, you know, it's we're kids, so we don't really care about that part. But they had the best down comforter and the best down pillows, and I'm going to remember that for the rest of my life. So weird things you remember. I also remember we did climb to the top of the Duomo in Florence, and I had my little Kodak, you know, disposable camera, or my real, was it a real camera? I don't remember. Either way, it broke, and so I lost all my Duomo pictures in the view of Florence. But what are you going to do? So anyways, that's my villain origin story. But I do also want to talk a little bit about some of the books that I'm reading, other than the ones I'm reading for the podcast, which include Valerie's book, Adrian Andover, Poor Choices, which is the second in his series. And I have another one coming up in about a week that you're going to love. So stay tuned for that. No spoilers. I also got my library books all in at the same time, because of course I did. So the first one is Rachel Hockhauser's Lady Tremaine. And for those that know, Lady Tremaine is the evil stepmother in Cinderella. So this is a retelling of her story, and I'm kind of interested. One of the things, this always sounds bad when I say it, and I don't mean it to sound bad, but the cartoon Lady Tremaine looks like my grandma Aslan. She just had that regal bearing, always perfectly coiffed, always gorgeous. Personality wise, not like Lady Tremaine and Cinderella. Just looks, guys. Also, as someone who's childless by choice and also loves to hang out with her cats, I don't fault Lady Tremaine for that. So there's that. And then I just finished The Gatsby Gambit by Claire Anderson Wheeler, which takes place in the gate, obviously in Great Gatsby world. Jay Gatsby, it's his sister Greta, and Daisy Buchanan's there, and Nick Carraway, and a motley crew, and then a death happens, and we get a little bit more of that. I really enjoyed this. It's a very I'm not a big Great Gatsby person, but I feel like this book was much better in that world. So 2 thumbs up. That was only 1 thumb up, but I meant 2 thumbs up. And the one I'm currently reading now is The Last Contract of Isako by Fonda Lee, who wrote the Green Bone Saga trilogy, Jade War, Jade, all the J's. I can't remember. And I have it on my to be read pile here because I tried it once and it was very heavy on like business speak, and so I couldn't get into it. But I think now that I've read more, I might be into it more. So it's about a contract. I don't want to call them a killer, but they're kind of killers, and it's sci-fi, and it's murder mystery, and there's politics, and yeah, it's really good, and I'm really enjoying it. So I'm going to try to finish this one this weekend so I can get to the other books. And that's kind of all I'm reading at the moment. Like I said, Valerie's is really fun if you're looking for a good cozy mystery with a different character in a different location. And I like the idea of she kind of has all these businesses, so it's just fun. So if you like a fun beach read book, go pick up the Venus Bixby series, and I think she said they're on Kindle Unlimited. So get reading, guys. Now, what you've all been waiting for, I know you've been waiting with bated breath for more information about what's going on with the minor league mysteries, because they're not the ballpark mysteries anymore. It's the minor league mysteries. Well, the developmental edit came back and it was great. And I did some little tweaks and I just sent it back this week. So I think we're still on track for September as of right now. So stay tuned to all my social media and everything for a cover and more information about reissuing books 1 and 2. But we are there, and I just crossed over the halfway mark of book 4, which has no title yet. We just in the book, they're just getting ready to have a baseball game after some shenanigans in Vermont. So stay tuned. And also, because I was manifesting in my book, in book 3, there's a heavy section on the automatic balls and strike system, but it was written before it was in the major leagues. So, take that with grain of salt. In the 4th book that I'm writing, I was writing it when the Red Sox started being really bad. So there's a very heavy anti-analytics, anti-drive line, dude bros in there that it's catharsis to get them out, get out my frustrations with the numbers people. So stay tuned for that, and I will keep you posted on that. Should be out next year as long as I can get it done. So I have a trip coming up in July. I'm going up to Canada for a few days. I'm hoping to bang out like almost the rest of the thing up there. We'll see what happens. Fingers crossed, guys. If you're looking for me, I'm still doing a lot of Sisters in Crime New England stuff. And if you're still interested in becoming a member, hit me up. We just had a great event last night with my vice president, Glade Kabongo, who talked about author branding. And she had some really great stuff that I'm actually really excited to use her tips, because they were really, really good. And then events wise, July 11th, I will be in Pawtucket, Rhode Island for the Book Around Rhode Island Author Book Fest. A whole bunch of us Sisters in Crime are going to be there at different tables, but we'll be selling our books and everything like that. I'll have the slightly smaller versions where you could pick them up, because these are going to be the last ones of this size and cover. We're going to get new ones. And then Canada. So if you're in Quebec, in Montreal at the end of July, hit me up and I'll come say hi. Or if you have a bookstore or a library that you really enjoy up there in the Quebec area, let me know and I'll see if I can reach out to them and do something. Lots of Aslins in Quebec, so I'm coming for you. And then in August 15th, I think, you can see it on my website. I am not going to be selling books, but I will be down at the ARIA in Warwick, Rhode Island, at a Sisters in Crime booth, and we're hoping to get some of our southern Massachusetts, Rhode Island, northern eastern Connecticut group together and have a little meetup while we're there. So if you're in the area for that, come say hi, and even just say hi to me and hang out with a bunch of other authors and buy books, because like we said in the podcast, indie authors need help, and we not everybody can be the Stephen King, and you can find a lot of great indie authors out there, and I highly recommend following on Threads and Instagram and all that to find these authors. And I think that's about it. So go get Valerie's books, go support me, go support all the indie authors in your life, go to libraries, go to small bookstores. And on that note, I gotta say, go Red Sox, because I really want them to turn something around. But also, in the good stuff, happy reading.